Hello everyone, it's your sister Roland and here I am in another podcast video. So lately I have been studying Ezekiel. Not easy to study, but I'm not studying it only by reading the Bible. I added some commentary, like look at my study Bible. I actually read it and then I listen to it and then I listen to commentary about it. There's like audio commentary. And a lot of things that was in Ezekiel, I was like, I did not know this. It's like, wow, this is a very interesting book. And I've read Ezekiel before by myself, just reading the Bible. But when I put them all together, like, reading, listening to it, and then listening to a commentary, it all made sense. The fact that, Ezekiel used to do a lot of drama and theater to try to get his message across to Israel, to the Israelites who would not listen at all. And the commentary that I listened to was from Bob Davis. I think he's like a pastor from Massachusetts. I'm not sure if he's still alive because this commentary is like from 2004. So I probably have to do research and see if he's still alive. But his name is Bob Davis and he lives in Massachusetts, somewhere in Massachusetts. He had mentioned that. But anyway, so one thing the Bob Davis had mentioned was, when 9/11 happened. That's why you see in the thumbnail, we'll probably put it up here. I have 9/11, image of 9/11, and then I have a image of Big C. The Big C that happened. Well, it didn't happen in 2020, but they discovered it in 2019, but we started to see the effects of Big C in 2020. So I have those two images because he was talking about how Americans, when 9/11 first happened, churches were filled to capacity for like a month when 9/11 happened. And then I was like, that's like similar to what happened when Big C came through. We couldn't gather together, but many people joined online. So I say, let me go and research, what were the responses during 9/11, because those were significant things that happened in history. A lot of things that happened in between, but those two really sticked out to everybody. So I said, let me go and research. I'll go look up, not research. I didn't really research. I just looked it up. One click of button to see the spiritual responses after 9/11 and the spiritual responses Americans had after Big C. So during 9/11, I have it right here. It says, after September 11, 2001 attacks, many Americans turned to spirituality and religious practices as a means of finding solace, peace, comfort, peace, understanding, and comfort in the face of tragedy. Here are some notable ways in which Americans responded spiritually. So increased religious attendance, places of worship, including churches, synagogues, mosques, and temples, experienced an upsurge in attendance following the 9/11 attacks. Many individuals sought solace in community support throughout religious services, prayer gatherings, and communal rituals. So the other one is interfaith dialogue and cooperation. The attacks prompted interfaith dialogue and collaboration as people from different religious backgrounds came together to foster understanding, unity, and promote peace. Interfaith events, dialogue sessions, and initiatives aimed to bridge divides and promote tolerance among various religious communities. So at that time, different religions gathered together to see, how they can help Americans, basically. Okay, 3, prayer and meditation. Individuals turn to prayer and meditation as a way to cope with grief, seek guidance, and find inner peace. Many engage in personal or group prayer sessions, both within religious institution and in private settings. So people were praying a lot, whether in groups or privately. People, prayed. That doesn't necessarily mean they were praying to God, but they were praying. They could have been praying to God, praying to different deities, just praying, you know, just put some good words out there. So religious counseling and support. This is another thing that they did. Religious leaders and counselors played a crucial role in providing spiritual guidance and support to individuals affected by the attacks. They offered counseling services, pastoral care, and conducted memorial service to address the emotional and spiritual needs of their congregation. So many people seeked out religious leaders, religious institutions, so that they could cope. So a coping mechanism was spirituality and religious leaders and religious services. There was also charitable and humanitarian efforts following 9/11. Many Americans engaged in charitable and humanitarian activities rooted in their faith traditions. Religious organizations and individuals worked together to provide assistance, support, and relief to the affected communities, including first responders, victim families, and those affected by the aftermath of attacks. So, they were gathering stuff for the first responders that were still there. They was going through the rubble, their families, different people sought different ways to help, how they could reach out. So people flew in from different places to help offer their assistance. So reflection and faith and meaning. The tragic events prompted deep reflections on the meaning of life, the nature of evil, and the role of faith in time of crisis. Many individuals engage in personal introspection, seeking a renewed sense of purpose and exploring questions of faith, hope, and resilience. They also had national and communal prayer events. So they hosted national and communal prayer events. The nation organized various, and there was a lot of them in different states, different places, and different countries also. The nation organized various prayer events and memorial service to honor the victims, express unity, and seek solace. These events brought people together across different faith traditions to offer prayers, words of comfort, and support for one another. So, not everybody did this, but many people did this, because many people, of course, were upset, in tragedies like this. People would always say, oh, why did God let this happen? Or, why he didn't do anything, and most of the time it's somebody that doesn't believe in God, or, doesn't even have a real relationship with God, that usually say stuff like that. But one thing I tell you, not most of the time, when these tragedies happen, God spoke. The thing is, people don't listen. People are not listening. People don't want to listen. Because why? This would be considered bad news. So if God is saying something is going to happen in New York, something bad, something tragic is going to happen in New York, some people, God may have showed them exactly what it is. Some people just say something bad is going to happen in New York. Pray for the people of New York. But people always tend to want to listen to good news. People don't want to listen to bad news. Just like where I was reading in Ezekiel, God was warning them that this place is going to get destroyed. They're going to come and they're going to plunder you, and they're going to take a lot of y'all away. Some of you guys are going to get taken out. Some of you guys are going to get taken away, and you're going to get taken away for 70 years. For years, God warned them. But how did it happen? This is when Ezekiel, who was supposed to die, asked God to extend his life. And then when God extended his life, not only did he have the most wickedest king that came from him, one of his sons, but he went and showed the king of Babylon all the riches of his kingdom. That was one of the main cause of why they were, in danger of being put into captivity. And then of their sin and their rebellion also didn't help at all. But God sent Jeremiah, God sent Ezekiel, God sent different prophets to warn them, hey, something bad is about to happen. They are coming, they're going to siege this place. But nobody would listen. And then what did happen, but they really couldn't say that, because God actually warned them. But, in the time that we're living in now, of course, God warns us, but those people that are, warning and saying, something's going to happen, usually those people are not as popular as, especially back in the Ezekiel time, there were people prophesying saying, no, everything is going to be good. Everything is going to be fine. Don't worry. Don't worry about what Ezekiel and Jeremiah are saying. They're crazy. It's going to be good. It's going to be fine. It's going to be lit. Everything is going to work out. But that was not so. And then God told them, send Ezekiel and Jeremiah to warn the people. And people, he already told them, they ain't going to listen to y'all. But just tell them. Just like other people God has commissioned to warn, this is going to happen. This is going to happen. They're probably not going to listen to you. They're not going to listen to you. But make sure you just tell. You tell the group of people or the people who you have reach of. So we're going to go into, and I remember when September 11th was here, I was in English class. And then we had just finished listening to the news, that because we had TV news, the school news, and then all of a sudden they shut everything down. They tune in to the TV, and then we saw this thing going down. So what were the spiritual responses of Americans after Big C in 2020? Now, before I start, it's not only, people that hear from God, like prophets and stuff like that, God can actually use to warn people. Because before Big C, started, we started to see the effects of Big C in 2020. I had already knew about it from 2019. Like sometime, I believe that was during the summer, if I was not mistaken, summer of 2019, or maybe September, around those times. There's a YouTuber by the name of Lovely T. She had some subscribers that live in that part where Big C, where it supposedly started, let's say that. And they were sending her, videos and pictures of people, just dropping dead. And how they was treating certain people. They were wearing the mask and different things like that. So I knew of something was going to go on. I didn't know it was going to be worldwide now. Well, not yet. Worldwide in that sense, how it came out. But I knew about it. So when it came in 2020 and then, it shut down everything, I was not surprised, because that's what was happening in that city. So this were the spiritual responses of Americans during that time. So virtual religious services, that's what happened. So people couldn't, like in 9/11, people filled up churches, actual churches. But with Big C, you couldn't do that, because, it was saying they say it could have been spread by touch, sneezing. They didn't want to take any chances, so they shut down a lot of places. And one of them were churches. Now, some churches didn't really shut down. Some people were still meeting together. Some people were meeting together, but in everybody stayed in their cars, and then they would have like a megaphone, because I think that's what Pastor G. Craig them did. They still met together, but everybody stayed in their cars in the parking lot of the church, and then they had the megaphone. They still had service, but they didn't do no virtual. They didn't do any virtual services. So as in-person gatherings were restricted due to lockdowns and social distancing measures, religious communities and organizations adapted by offering virtual services and ceremonies. People participated in online worship, prayer gatherings, and religious teachings through video conferencing platforms and live stream. Zoom blew up. Zoom blew up. Everybody was using Zoom. Everybody's using whatever streaming platforms. That's what they were using at that time. People even had to live stream their weddings and funerals. Like before, they did had a lot of funerals that were online, but now it's a lot because that's the only way people could have attended certain places. There were churches that never had any type of live streaming thing, never did anything online, had to do that because that was the only way for their churches to meet together. And some places, well, some churches didn't even need to do that because some churches were not big anyway. But I think if you were like under 10, you could still meet together. You just do social distancing. And there were churches, there were churches that took a while. Even when the restrictions started to get lifted, there was churches that were still closed. There were still, I wouldn't be shocked if there are churches still closed to this day, because Big C is still around. Ain't like it's gone. So there was also spiritual reflection and introspection. So Big C provided an opportunity for many individuals to engage in personal reflection, contemplation, and introspection. People explored that they did the same thing. That's the same thing that they did. Giving me the same information from 9/11. Thanks a lot. And then pick through and see what other stuff. So, okay, they did more acts of compassion and service. Some people who were miserable, they stayed miserable. But some people, yes, they were more compassionate. Yeah, because some people, they were locked down. They were just miserable. So they just became more miserable. So many Americans turn to acts of compassion and service as a way to express their spirituality and support those in need. Individuals and religious organizations organize food drive. Oh, yes, that. The lines for the food drive, oh my goodness, long lines, because a lot of people couldn't go to work and stuff like that. And I remember this lady was saying she was running for some type of position in the school board here, and then she was part of a school drive. That's a way to gain votes. She wasn't really doing it to help people. That's neither here or there. Anyway, so she was organizing a food drive to help people, and then she was the one who was taking, because you couldn't get out. Remember, you had to come in. I was wondering how they help people that didn't have cars. But I think the people that didn't have cars would come with their like trolleys or little push things, and they would stand inside. They would give them back. But you had to open your trunk, and then they would put the box of food or the bags of food in the trunk. And then she was like, this lady pulled up. The lady pulled up in a BMW, and she gave this lady a look. And the lady was livid. The lady gave her a piece of mind. I say, why are you looking at me like that? And then she's like, oh, I didn't mean anything. It's because you don't seem like somebody who would be in this. I say, ma'am, we in Big C. I'm not working. The lady was a business owner. I had to shut down my business. I've been shut down for a month. I need this. She tell her off. How are you running for office and you judging people? I mean, who does that? But that's neither here or there. So I guess she felt bad that the fact she judged the lady. So she got the lady some help. She got the lady assistance. I think that's when they was doing the PPP and EIDL stuff. So she got somebody to help the lady to get PPP loan and EIDL. Everything worked out and stuff like that. But it was, She was a teaching lesson. She's like, that's why you never judge anybody, because you never know what people are going through. Yes, and you had to learn that lesson that way. How about not judge people at all? Let's get back to the story. So let me see. So there was a lot of prayers. And then there was grief rituals and memorial service, because remember, there was a lot of 9/11. We lost a lot of people, but Big C, we lost a lot of people, a lot of elders. I mean, just people were just dropping down. It was sad. So it was a lot of loss and grief. We're not saying, oh, comparing the two events. Both of them were significant, because every life that was lost is a significant loss and grief to somebody. So they had to do this at a higher scale of providing grief counseling and memorial service, because that's how much people were losing their lives from this Big C. And then people don't know what they was doing. It's like there was experiment. This was a disaster. This was ridiculous. So people really seeked out um, religion and spirituality. And then this kind of didn't last like a month. It kind of lasted longer until the restrictions were lifted. So people's people might, their church were used to having like maybe 20 people, 50 people, but then they had a big online presence. They had like 100 people, 500 people watching them online. Until this day, some people continue to stay with that church, whoever they were listening to. So it's kind of the same thing, people, only difference is like they had like, a lot of those stimulus packages and stuff like that, that came through, a lot of help, a lot of assistance. But mainly what remained the same is people seeked out spirituality and religion at a higher rate in those times, that was just devastating. And then people will say, what about Big C? Nobody saw that it was coming. I remember this was in 2009. 2009, my church, we have like this fasting service. That's what the Haitian culture usually do. You have the fasting service. It's like from in the morning to sometime during lunchtime, and then after lunchtime you go eat. But I never fast. I go pray. I go to prayer. It's a fasting service, but I go to prayer service because I always eat before. That's what I do. But anyway, so 2000, it was 2009, and we were doing a fundraising to move from the church that we were at to another church. We didn't have the church yet. We just collected money, and the pastor that was came to preach that weekend. He came to preach that weekend, so he came. He started Thursday, and he's going to preach Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And he had already said, when y'all gonna do fundraising, let me know so I could get my church to help you guys. The pastor said she wasn't gonna say anything to him. She's gonna let it be a surprise. And then when he came through, he's like, "Wow, you guys are fundraising. Y'all never even told me." That's not even important. But anyway, when he started the first, remember he was supposed to preach that weekend, so he started on Thursday, and he said before he came here, he had a dream. He had a dream. He had a dream, I guess maybe Wednesday night or Thursday morning, whatever. When he came, he had a dream, and it troubled him. It troubled him, after he finished telling us why we didn't say anything. But he said that, and he was like, he doesn't even understand it. But that always stayed with me. He was like, he saw two things in the dream. He saw everybody in the world wear masks. Everybody. He said that's why it's like it wasn't like just in America. It was like he went to different places and everybody in the world were wearing masks. A second thing that he saw that people in the church turn like spies to report certain things in churches. And I don't want to say exactly, but when he said that there was certain stuff, and when you have testimony services, so long time you could have just say, exactly what God did to you for you. So certain people that didn't have certain documentation, the pastor would say, if you don't have documentation, please don't tell anybody. Please don't stand here and tell people because you don't know, who's listening to you. So he's like, he didn't understand any of them because he's like, why would you be in church snitching on people? You understand? Yeah, we could, y'all be in the streets, y'all don't snitch, but y'all coming in the church and y'all want to snitch on people. That's what the pastor's way. But anyway, and then he said he don't understand the mask thing. But I never ever forgot that. And this was in 2009. I can't even remember the month because that's how long ago it was. But I never forgot that. And then every time I would see somebody out there before 2020, because long before Big C, people, if you have some type of certain procedure, certain dental procedure, certain stuff, if you have like a cold, something on your lips or whatever, people would wear masks for that. People who work in construction. Every time I would see them, I would always remember that vision that he had. And then when Big C came through, and I say, it made sense. Now it makes sense. So sometimes we say that, why God let certain stuff happen, all these bad things that happen. God warns people, actually. But the people that he uses to warn, people don't listen to them. People don't want to listen to them because you telling us bad, something bad gonna happen. We're gonna be on lockdown. We're gonna be. Nobody want to listen to that. And the people that may have bigger platforms, they're not gonna want to say that because they want to tell people good news because that's what brings in the money. You telling people about it, oh yes, this is what's gonna happen. We need to repent. Ain't nobody want to deal with you. Nobody want to deal with you. And that's what exactly happened to the Israelites. God was warning them a long time. The long time. Not only because of what, even though Hezekiah did what he did, show off their wealth, but had they, continued to stay in obedience and not going after other gods and stuff like that, God would have came through for them. But they took their trust out of God and placed the trust in those idols that they used to put under the trees. God told them when they came into to this land to run out all these people, all those ites and stuff like that, Perizzites and Amorites, run them out and tear down their altars. They didn't do that. They was like, oh, we ran out the people. That's okay. They left the altars, and then they started serving. Believing in those altars. Now, I don't know if the altar used to speak to them or whatever it may be, but they started to put their trust in those altars instead of God. And then so when God, in that compassion, God still warned them. God still warned them, hey, disaster's coming. They ain't checking for God because they listen to the other prophets that everything is okay. But then when calamity came, where were those prophets? Where were those prophets? Where was those sacrifices they offered to those gods in those high places, under the trees, under the thick oak and stuff like that? Where were they? They were nowhere to be found. But you turned your back. God never turned his back on them. They turned their back on the God. Oh, that's much. And then he was like, this is what's all gonna happen to you. And then when it started to happen, they started going to prayer. Oh, I can't stay without eating. I have to eat. Well, they had to eat. I mean, they had to stay without. They had to stay without food. And then here it says in Ezekiel 7:25, it says, destruction comes. They will seek peace, but there shall be none. Remember in 9/11, they seek peace. They gathered together in prayer to seek peace. And after a month, they got it. They turned, we good, we good. Just like now, everybody was on. Some people still stayed online, but some people, yeah, we good. We good. Everything is good. We outside. We outside. But for the Israelites, destruction came. They went and looked for peace. They couldn't find it because God was been warning them, and God has been warning them because they know better. If certain stuff they was doing, they know they wasn't supposed to be doing what they was doing, but they still did what they did, and that's why they paid the way that they paid, because they knew better. All them other ites and Amorites and Perizzites, they in their wickedness and sin, not saying they're not gonna pay, but they're not gonna pay as how the Israelites was paying, because Israelites knew better. It's a disaster will come upon disaster. Disaster will come upon disaster, and rumor will be upon rumor. Then they will seek a vision from a prophet. Now you seeking a prophet? Are you looking for any type of prophet? Because you just need a word. But the law will perish from the priests and counsel from the elders. So you're looking for a word, you're looking for a vision, you're looking for counsel, and you're not going to find it. Now we haven't reached in that predicament. But what if we do? You looking for peace, you looking for, and you ain't getting it. You crying out, and nobody's answering. Because that's what happened to the Israelites. Because they knew better. This God that took them out of, they was they were enslaved for all those years. God took them out by this miraculous way. And then y'all turn your backs on God to serve stuff on under the tree, under the thick oak. That's who you think is your God. You adorn these stuff with gold, and you say this is your God. So whatever calamity, because in life, calamity is trying to hit us here and there, but when you certain stuff, just God protects people. He just protects people, whether you pray or not. He just protects you. But then there's certain stuff you don't even believe in God. You think that I don't need to God, I don't need to deal with God. My gold calf gonna protect me, okay? My big stomach man gonna be protect me, okay? Calamity is gonna come next week. Hopefully your big stomach man gonna protect you. And say leaders they're gonna mourn, and they're gonna do the king will mourn, the prince will be clothed with desolation, and the hands of the common people will tremble. Everybody's scared. Everybody's scared. And I will do to them according to their way, and according to what they deserve, I will judge them. Then they shall know that I am the Lord. He's not only the Lord when he do good stuff. Oh, he's so good. Yes, he's good. That's why he says abounding in compassion. He's filled with mercy, but he's slow to anger. That means he has anger. So instead of being that person, when calamity happens and disaster happens, that's when they crazy. Oh, I need to go to church. I need to pray. Or some people is like, God, you caused this. This is all your fault. Why don't you seek God now? I mean, just seek him now. Just like he did for Abraham. Remember, he was going to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. He never told anybody in Sodom and Gomorrah anything. Who did he tell? Abraham, his friend, who doesn't even live in Sodom and Gomorrah. And the only reason why he told him, because he knew that Abraham loved Lot a lot. He knew Abraham loved Lot a lot. But he knew he had a compassion, a love for Lot. Abraham had that. So he's like, hey, this is what's getting ready to happen to Sodom and Gomorrah for all the stuff that they're doing. And Abraham's like, Lord, please, If you find 20, okay, Lord, and he pushing, he was God friend for real. Lord, if you find 5, what you gonna, if you, will you spare it? God couldn't even find 5, because even Lot became corrupted. Even Lot, his family became corrupted, because remember, he wasn't even, he just chose that. He didn't even ask God guidance to choose where he's gonna. He said, I'm gonna choose over there because it looked like the garden of the Lord, and then ended up in Sodom and Gomorrah. And then it was just downhill from there. But don't wait until bad stuff happen to seek God. Seek God now. Actually have a relationship with him now. And now if you don't believe in him, don't be blaming God for stuff that happens. Do you even serve him? Okay, so how you blaming him for stuff that happened? When it's good stuff, you don't say, oh, thank you, God. As soon as it's bad, oh, it's God's fault. Oh, it's God's fault. Anyway, thank you for watching this podcast video, and I'll see you in another one. Bye.